Today's guest is Hammad Chaudhry. He's the VP of Innovation in Construction Technology at EllisDon. All right, Hammad, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Tats, for having me.
Yeah, so you're the VP of Innovation in Construction Tech at EllisDon. What does that involve?
Yeah, so I work on a lot of cool and interesting projects that are focused on helping the business, the core business of construction, with new technology, startups, innovative things like BIM and VDC, applying certain different methods. So over the past 5 years, just like many in the industry, we've really started to use drones, for example, quite a bit. So a variety of those tools, and also digital software and tools that help process it. So it could be like a pull planning, last planner system. It could be something to do with delivery and logistics management for construction projects, so on and so forth. So as we bring some of these softwares in and create standardization and partnerships, helping getting those out there as well. And it's really fun too, because the industry is changing, as you know. There's a lot of technology coming in focused on construction.
Yeah, I mean, what what sort of sections are moving or being adopted very quickly, and which are ones that are taking a little bit more time?
It kind of depends on the type of company and organization. For architecture, engineering, construction, it's pretty big. Within construction specifically, you can look at it as a larger contractor like EllisDon and some of the peers and competitors we have, mid-size, and even then some of the smaller contractors. And so it really depends. But one thing that's kind of the I think driving force between a lot of people's perspective shifting on implementing new technology on the smaller scale of the contractors, and matches up with what some of the larger folks have been doing, is there needs to be a little bit more digital processes and integration into the business, so they can start probably capturing data and managing information to be able to start getting towards some of the cool and hot topics that everyone's talking about, like artificial intelligence and predicting what could happen based on that data that people don't really have right now.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you capture it, I mean, I guess it's just for sort of close to real-time decision making, or for future projects. Like, where's the value sort of being derived?
I think it really is not one place or another. There's a lot of focus and specialization. So, for example, you could look at scheduling and planning and get really deep into it and say, maybe I need a predictive AI that helps with scheduling and planning. But from a different perspective, if you're looking at managing an active project or one that's getting up and running, you can't wait until that kind of a tool is up and running. Then you may be thinking a little bit more about, hey, how do I have tools that help the folks that are going to be designing, procuring, tendering, fabricating, installing, and make sure that they have a means to plan and coordinate it. So it could be things like FieldWire is a tool we use for drawing management and sharing, or TouchPlan is something we do for like pull planning, digital last planner. So you can get very, very specific and look at both sides. So I don't think there is a good answer for one place. I think it depends, and a lot of that innovation, if you will, and digitization is happening now across the life cycle of the businesses out there. And
Yeah,
so
I mean,
some are focused on. Sorry, Task. Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, innovation is definitely a cool word, but there's a time and place where it makes sense. And what are some of the things that you look at to understand if it's the right time or the right thing to move forward on?
So on our side, it depends on what kind of projects we have and problems we're facing. So some of the main categories, if you want to think about it that way, that we've come up with, is using kind of the framework of uh, improving the business, right? So design and constructability is a bucket that we're focused on. Quality control, quality insurance, and trying to help with that part as well. Health and safety, because and environmental aspects, because again, they can have some pretty big implications on projects now from compliance, governance, and also for kind of being able to track what's happening. And then scheduling and planning and being able to make sure that we have all of the information as early as we can. That could be things like BIM VDC, or it could even just be simply different types of contracts that are out there. So if you have a design build or design assist kind of contract compared to the traditional lump sum jobs out there. So it's kind of depends on those different aspects, and I think that's kind of where, yeah, you could look at it.
Yeah, for you, maybe personally or for the company, um, you know, in on the startup side, where do you spend your time? Where are your interests?
For the startups, it's everywhere. So like the breadth of the business and the industry helps with that as well. We have some startups that are just purely focused on solutions like time lapse management, which is expanding into computer vision and IoT and more broader aspects. Others are kind of maybe more cutting edge, like robotics. So working with companies like Optimotive, you can put multiple different types of payloads on them. They can go use an ATV type platform to go patrol these job sites. So if you've got anything that's big, large, industrial, civil, heavy manufacturing kind of sites, imagine being able to send these kind of robots and automatically capture data. And then there's even things that are more digital in nature, right? So it could be just digitizing a process or something that may have still been done pen and paper. So it's all over right now, which is why it's so exciting, right? Because you never know what could come across as an opportunity, either from a project that client's asking for, or there's a deliverable requirement, or from the startup side. Somebody's got this really cool, crazy idea, and you're able to match the two up, that's the best part. And I'm not gonna lie, like you can't really forecast that a lot of times. You have a gut feeling sometimes, common problems and issues, but sometimes you can't always predict that. From these 10 startups we're talking to, which one of these will really get traction in the business. That's always kind of a surprise sometimes.
Yeah, so I mean, is part of your role to sort of connect these startups to sort of resources and mentorship and stuff like that, or how are you assisting?
Yeah, I think there's a few things to talk about there. So one is the way that just technology, I guess from a traditional standpoint works. So, generally at our organization, you can email kind of our IT support teams and say, I need ABC software or whatever, and then we have a great team that goes, jumps in, looks at the requirements of what you're asking for compared to our catalog and, the digital legal security requirements and so on and so forth. And sometimes that team will even go and look for certain solutions if there's not something in that repository available. And then there's kind of on the innovation side, what kind of I'm focused on with our team is looking at these tools that could potentially have more of a meaningful impact across the business. So if we go to some of the partnerships we've put in place, and kind of we can elaborate on that later, but touch plan, StructSub, Timescapes, Provision, and a few other startups that we put in. eh, The logic and the premise there is there's a need for the business, so we need to be able to do some sort of a digital pull planning, last planning, or even kind of communicate that information or manage our deliveries and logistics and all that coordination on a platform, or even look at contracts and legal risks and even our sites, right, using cameras and all that. So there's a need, but then there's also that kind of innovation startup side, and that's where our team kind of focuses. So if it's something that could be an enterprise tool, like a PDF reader, for example, we may not maybe jump in because that's kind of an enterprise tool standard. But if it is something specific for construction technology that does have an impact of making us better in managing risk and delivering projects on site and through execution, then our team will get involved and try and find places to deploy pilots of these startups and determine, is it somewhere that we want to partner? Is it somewhere we want an enterprise wide deployment of? Or is it maybe a no go for our business?
Yeah, you mentioned pilot, which is interesting. I mean, how, what are some examples of pilots? And I'm just thinking about scale and risk and all that stuff, change management. What are some of these pilots you're talking about?
Okay, so um, one size doesn't fit all, right? So we've got quite a variety. I'm just gonna here pull up a couple of examples here because I think it'll be easier if we actually talk through maybe some real examples instead of me trying to
For sure.
kind of come up with some anecdotes here. Okay, so some of the companies that kind of we've been piloting, one that I think you'd find interesting is this company called Versatile. And so they're this company that's created this IoT crane hook pretty much. So imagine these tower cranes that build all these projects, and on every hook, if you could have a device that can not only get the weight and kind of accelerometer and all that information, but take a photo and send that back into a system that can analyze the pictures and say, okay, you're using this time here to go and pick up or rig, maybe sheet metal or plumbing or drywall or whatever it is. And it's taking you this long to do it. And then it starts to give you information on all that activity. And then it gets even more complicated. So that one is really cool. It's called Versatile and has been one that we've been piloting for a few years. And now we're starting to deploy on more and more projects. Another, I guess, really good example would be Timescapes. So we have a strategic partnership with them on our side now. And that came in through the premise of we're using maybe 10 or 20 different time kind of lapse cameras or providers and all this stuff. How do we go now to one maybe solution where we can own the data, have ownership and retain that, but still make sure it's cutting edge, right? Like we don't want to do something and end up going back in time and regressing in terms of user experience, technical capabilities, and all of that. So it does need to be something that not only hits our legal, safety, and data requirements, but then also maybe would be different than what traditional software might be like. And that's where Timescapes came in, is able to not only be that portfolio level tool for us, but also provides computer vision analytics and a really cool roadmap on that side that would be complementary to kind of what we're trying to do on our side. Um, Another couple of great examples, like we worked with Toggle.ai a few years back, did kind of estimating takeoff exercises, and that is another remarkable thing to see now. And there's a bunch of other tools out there that are doing the same thing, but essentially upload your PDF on there and it'll give you counts of how many doors, how many walls, what's the square footage or linear footage and stuff like that. It's really kind of where you would think technology would be at today, but there's still a lot of opportunity there. And I guess one last example I could give you is we started piloting this platform called StruckSub, and that one is like the delivery logistics management one I was talking about. So we went through it and ended up seeing a huge improvement on site. Some of these jobs have 14 to 20,000 deliveries through the course of that 2 to 3 year time. And so when you think about that, this was being done through people coordinating on a whiteboard. Maybe somebody was, creating some sort of spreadsheet or like a shared calendar if you're lucky, but not having a platform and seeing that, you can imagine the impact. So now we've got that across 8 or 10 major projects across our portfolio, which are probably all going to hit 15 to 20,000 deliveries each as well. So,
Wow.
yeah, that's an
With this
example.
that delivery sort of tool, which looks obviously that one's been really sort of implemented, and you can see the ROI and stuff like that. Y- In your mind, how long did you kind of like give for it to kind of like the training to take hold and stuff like that? I mean, how did you kind of have a idea of what it was going to take to get over the line so that there was adoption and the result you're looking for?
Yeah, see, this is always kind of an interesting piece for technology. So, like, if you're looking at it from the pilot side, you can go through and pilot technology But if you're not putting on the right project with maybe the right people and at the right time, you're not going to get a really good outcome. But on the flip side, you also need technology to be able to, cover a wide range of your portfolio, right? So it's kind of on the front end when you're bringing in technology, you got to make sure you're pairing it in a way that you can compare it to the traditional method of doing business. How would we traditionally manage this or that scope and so on and so forth, compared to how this new tool or startup or whatever process is doing it? And then when you get to the actual deployment side, like you're talking about, of getting the technology out there, I think it's important to realize too, uh, overall construction is a project by project based business. So it's not like a manufacturing plant or some of these others where, uh, you can really shift the entire process a lot quicker potentially. Like it still takes a lot of energy and work, of course, but it's a similar process that's repeated from beginning to end. With our business, because some jobs might be going for 8 years, some are only a couple of years, but they're all different phases. So you got to wait for the work to turn over, right? So it could take a few years before you have had enough jobs that have started up since you started to bring these tools in, that now you've got the majority of projects on there. And so that's another way that you got to think about it. So how do you support people throughout, you know, that churning period to make sure they're aware, they know about it, and on their next job they're ready to go?
Yeah, for sure. You said the right people. I guess some groups or individuals are more open to try new things than others. So you could probably start there with some success, like you said, smaller projects or the right projects that to highlight the I guess advantage that you're trying to get from this as well, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, earlier as you were kind of talking about it too, but kind of I talked briefly about it, but it's not like one solution is going to kind of solve anything either. So a lot of times, you'll find people are very passionate about one particular part of an innovation, which is not bad. You need people who are champions and trailblazers. But within that, you think, hey, if we go and implement this one AI system or this one software or this one platform, all of a sudden it's going to solve all of the problems that we're facing. But in reality, it's almost like you've got to look at the entire business process and digitize or improve whatever you want to call it, each part of that by 1 or 2%, 5% here and there, whatever, and then collectively all these tools coming together. So your front end estimating and then tendering and procurement, and then getting into kind of like your design management, coordination, reviews, into construction field management, RFIs, all that kind of stuff, coordination, BIM, yada yada, all the way down to handover, and all that it entails, right? And so if you digitize and bring in the right innovations across those, couple of percent here, there, 5%, whatever, and then collectively you could notice a remarkable gain too, right? So it's not just one thing.
yeah, because maybe sometimes if you try to go for that home run, it's too big of a shift or a change, right? And maybe you just don't get it over the line or you don't get the buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I can't think of too many that would come through kind of like an innovation or construction tech team that would be at that level or scale, right? When you think about it at that kind of level, it'd be a business model shift, really, and that now comes from a completely different perspective altogether.
Yeah, for sure. Now, obviously, um, ideas can come from anywhere. I mean, is what things that you're involved in or you've seen effective in terms of collecting or encouraging that those ideas or possible future innovation projects to come forth so that you have a pipeline of these things that you can look at.
I think some of it comes down to the individuals and people. So like you can put in some processes like surveys and feedback and all that, and that provides value in its own way. But really, for myself and some of the folks that I've kind of been working with, I think the best way is to really get out there If you're in a construction business and you're working on construction tech, you have the unique opportunity to get out into the field, visit sites and projects, and really learn about the bottlenecks that happen. And I don't know if this makes proper sense or not, but a lot of the opportunity people think is going out and asking someone, "Hey, Tats, what's your problem?" And then maybe I can create a software to solve it. In reality, it's more about asking that person, "Hey, Tats, what are you doing? Explain it to me. Why are you doing it that way? Interesting. How many times do we do that? What are you going to do next? Why are you doing it that way? How come they're not doing this here?" And then so on and so forth. That leads to an explanation, and then you get to a lot of pain points or bottlenecks, which can help inform, if this particular, software startup, whatever is going to come in and make an impact or not. You can get a pretty good gut feel. But again, I don't think there's a good formula or anything. It comes down to a little bit of people and the right connections and knowing that, but also having that balance between enough insight from the people that are, running the job and doing that and feeling some of those bottlenecks, and then enough exposure to what's happening in the marketplace with solutions so you can try and bring the two together.
Mm. So how do you, I mean, obviously, you must get contacted from companies all the time about their new stuff. How do you kind of filter, so because you don't have all the time in the world, on what companies or opportunities that you want to keep in touch with? I mean, do you have a system yourself? Do you rely on others to filter it for you? Like, what's your thought on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm lucky. We've got a great team now. So we've been working really, really well together. And we've gotten to a point now where, to your point, we are inundated with demos and startup requests and all that kind of stuff. So we've structured it so we have certain placeholders and scheduled kind of moments for that now across the team. So we're able to make sure that we get through that, and then also follow up, and to make sure that we're not missing out on any of those opportunities. And then the other flip side is what comes inbound to you. So it could be a project manager, a superintendent, somebody in one of our projects or one of our teams, or it could also be somebody that we're working with, have pretty good relationship with, reaches out and says, "Hey, we really got to talk to you about this. We've been using it on, a few of our job sites, and here's what we think you would like about it." So, and then we get that back into our queue and say, "Okay, here's kind of the days that our teams got open. Are you able to fit into that?" So yeah, definitely a little bit of a system now and a little bit of a team approach, but it helps kind of manage the inbounds. And there's no shortage, to your point, which is a really good thing to see, right? There's a lot of opportunity out there for construction tech.
Sure. I mean, for you, you mentioned, you have strategic partnerships for these pilots and stuff like that. In your opinion, from your point of view, what's the ideal situation? How does the company need to approach you? What are the general terms or the operating things that work well in the past? What is a strategic partnership for you?
Yeah, so for the strategic partnerships, what we're looking at doing is building out EllisDon's construction tech ecosystem. And that ecosystem includes tools that we build in-house. So for example, we have a product called Gate 3, which is our project management software. In the market, people might know about Procore or Autodesk, for example. But we have our own version of our tool in-house to do that. And other pieces of the ecosystem. So it could be, there's dozens of different buckets here, but one example would be in project and site management. Gate 3 only makes one piece of that. It's a big core piece that we couldn't do and operate our business without. But then there's other pieces that come in. And so part of that site management could be scheduling, planning, delivery management. It could be, form management. And so we've got different partnerships that make sense to complement that piece of our technology stack. And there could be enterprise software, which is just, it's a tool, you pay the vendor the agreement, that's it. But within our construction tech kind of strategic partnerships, it's more about having an actual relationship. And so we sit down every quarter. We have special agreements with these folks as well, that we support them and they support us. So not only are we buying their product, but we're helping shape, for example, part of their roadmap. We're helping them get feedback on their product and where maybe they need to focus and change some things. On their side, we're helping them also with getting the word out there. If we're doing some marketing events or presentations and talking about construction tech, of course, we're going to talk about our partners in that sense as well. And then on their side, they get somebody in an organization which is obviously able to uh, have a pretty significant footprint within the Canadian market and also bring in a lot of value to them, not just as a customer, right? Now it goes beyond into their different markets and segments and helps them get better there as well. And so the partnership complements our now bigger ecosystem. Maybe we're pulling data in, we're able to hold it and maybe display it on another partner's platform or on one of our other platforms. So it gives us that flexibility as well of trying to strategize and build out those partnerships and tools within the broader kind of use. And then hopefully, you'll get to a point where it wouldn't matter if you're part of our folks or not, whether you're using 50 or 20 or 100 tools, because you're going to have limited touch points and all that stuff's going to be working together in the background. That's kind of the goal. And that's how the strategic partnerships kind of fit into that to help us get there and, benefit those startups as well.
Yeah, sounds cool. It sounds like you sort of mutually kind of want each other to be successful and willing to do what it takes on both sides to add value.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think some times you think about construction and technology and there's been a lot of resentment maybe towards tech generally. It's like, I've been doing this for 30 years, let me do it my way, and I know how to manage my risk through this process. Other times it's the Autodesks and the big conglomerates may come and put you in a position where you end up paying so much money now, right? Like, tech's become a serious part of overhead for probably most businesses in architecture, engineering, and construction now. So there's also that part, right? So I don't know if there's going to be um, an easy way for technology and some of those pieces to overcome that cultural resistance, really.
Yeah, sure. You're part of many different associations. Do you want to highlight any that you think are doing a good job, pushing their mission?
Yeah, so one of the things kind of that I'm very excited about, which we talked about briefly as well, like the accelerator program. So EllisDon-accelerator.com. That was a program we launched through EllisDon to say, look, for startups, what's valuable? And money, I don't think is an issue right now. Obviously, there's venture capital folks and there's other investors and companies and accelerators that can provide cash and capital. But and yeah, maybe it's harder to raise capital like today compared to 2 years ago, but that's a different point. But really, what a lot of startups in construction want is to be able to get feedback from people who are going to be end users. And it's really hard because it's not a consumer market, right? It's like very, very disconnected sometimes, very specific in other areas. And so that's where EllisDon can provide value with the accelerator. So setting that up so startups get something unique and we get to pair them up and get them out in our business and create potentially those partnerships. That's one thing I'm excited about and I think is making a difference in the industry just in general. Another aspect is I'm on the board of Building Transformations, and that's a not-for-profit looking at advancing the built world through the use of technology. Could be through government and academia, could be through the actual industry. There's a bunch of events they host and some great stuff. And I think they've been making a big difference there too. And another great one is Society 5.0. So this is a new organization focused on helping Alberta, which is where kind of I'm based, um, and these small, medium businesses really get up to speed with some of this new transformative tech. And so they have partnerships with kind of Southern Alberta Institute of Technology and other institutions to try and help push Alberta on the digital map a little bit more. And so those are some of the organizations that I'm a part of, and initiatives that kind of have gotten out there, I think, that are really helping the industry and moving things forward.
Very cool. I love it. Is there anything that you wanted to share but I haven't asked?
No, I think more about your side, right? Like, what's your take on construction and construction technology? You've had some really good guests in the past when it comes to construction specifically, contact, venture capital. Obviously, you've got your business as well, which is related very closely to construction too. So, what's your thoughts? I think would be a really good way for us to kind of get a vantage point of what's happening out there now, Tats. You've talked to a lot of people. What is the state of construction technology in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a technology expert, but what I've heard a lot about is just there seems to be a lot of thought on being very friendly to adopting technology by making whatever they're proposing work well with what they have and some the thought put into that. So reducing as much friction as possible on getting up and running. So I hear less about like getting people to make wholesale changes versus hey, what are you doing? And then, okay, well, maybe there's 20 different things people do in this scenario and making it work better with those things. So I've heard a lot more of that. I mean, obviously, I'm not on the implementation side, so what that is for a generality. But I've heard a lot more about you know people sort of considering that more. And
Yeah.
then also, I've heard a lot more about just sort of the importance of being in it. Like you are in it yourself, right? And there's a lot of technology companies that come in without that sort of contractor base or connection. Going out there, meeting people, like you said, talking to them, listening to them, finding out what they do. So I think I see a lot more companies that are a little bit more aware of that and are, I guess, more sensitive to the fact to sending a clear message that they're not just coming in here and then dropping something on your lap, that they are willing to invest in the industry and to be a part of it because that sort of relationship side is very, very important.
Mm. Yeah. I think you nailed it, man. That's actually really, really perfectly said. And yeah, like you ended off, the relationship is still what construction seems to be about.